Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. So we're here for another episode of Through the Gates to Save the Hunt, and we've got a couple really cool guests that we've been dealing with over the course of the last, 12, 14 months. We've got Mr. Tim Ritschard, who's a cattleman, but also the president for the Middle Park Stock Growers Association, correct?
Yep, correct.
Yep. And then we got your buddy, Doug Bruchez, and both of you are up in the Middle Park area. And so start out with you, Tim. Introduce yourself, give a little bit of background, and then we'll dump it off to Doug.
Yep, yeah. So, I'm a president of the Middle Park Stock Growers Association. I'm a fifth-generation cow-calf producer in Greene County. Family's been there forever. We got elected to the board about 8 years ago, thanks to Doug, and so now we kind of took off, and here we are today. We're starting, keep fighting, I guess, and kind of made a name for Middle Park last year, and so, yeah, that's what I've been doing, just ranching away.
How big is your operation?
Run about a 500 head cow-calf production, run about, mostly leased on government land. We have about 1,200 acres of private, and then about 20,000 of public that we run onto, so, yeah.
And Doug?
Yeah. So I'm a fifth generation cattle rancher in Colorado as well. I'm on Middle Park Stock Growers Board with Tim. I'm also on our local HPP board. HPP is Habitat Partnership Program run through CPW to try and mitigate wildlife and livestock landowner conflicts. We've been, I was the first one to have a confirmed wolf depredation last year in 2024. And that was kind of a aha moment, and how the wolves set up and everything is, it wasn't a one-time deal. Some wolves passing through, they ended up denning on the top side of our place and my neighbor's place. And it turned into, as Director Davis calls it, a perfect store.
And that turned out to be the Copper Creek Pack?
That turned out to be the Copper Creek Pack.
And so how close are you guys together as far as property?
My home ranch is actually a little bit farther from him. Where I grew up is actually just over the hill from him. I'm about a mile from there, probably a little bit more than a mile.
Well, we share a fence.
Yeah, we share a boundary, really. They share a so. Yeah, we're pretty close to each other.
And you're in the family operation because I've met relatives of yours.
Yep.
And they're all in the same place, or they're individual places?
We're all in the same place. Our ranch kind of has two headquarters. We call it the lower headquarters and the upper headquarters. My parents and my brothers live at the upper headquarters, and I live at the lower headquarters where our working shop and corrals and all that are. So I manage the ranch for the family. My oldest brother is a battalion chief firefighter over in the Eagle River Valley, and my middle brother, based on, there's a lot of W words that we have to deal with in Middle Park. Bulls is the new one, but water has been the big one since the early 2000s. Well, forever, but really kicked up in the early 2000s. And our family, to run our operation, we basically had to dedicate one of my brothers as a quasi-attorney / full-time board member on everything, to attend everything, because it's a full-time fight to try and keep what we've got. Mm-hmm. So
how big is your guys' operation?
So we run a little over 325 cows. We put up a lot of hay, a little over 2,000 ton of hay, and deeded ground, it's a little over 6,000 acres, and with some of our BLM permits and stuff, we run on a little over 15,000.
You guys do any hunting operations, either one of you?
I don't, just personal stuff and friends come on, but I don't know guided stuff. I don't have a whole lot of, as I like to say, good. I have access to good hunting, but not. It's really changed though since that East Troublesome fire in my area. But no, his brother killed a giant bull one time a couple years ago up behind my house. That since then we haven't had the elk and the deer, and so we just kind of have the access to good hunting, but not great hunting.
We hunt his place because other people pay to hunt our place.
That's not happened.
So, that sounds like a good friendly relationship.
Yeah, no, we're all real close and we all have to work together because I mean, the ranching community is really, really tight knit because most days we need 3-4 guys working the ranch. We just all help each other out. I mean, brandings, everybody shows up. You got all as much help as you need. 30 people, 35 people can show up to help you out for the day and
Hauling cows, and shipping, and
we all just work really close together. And our hunting outfit, we started back in 2003. And then our neighbor that the Copper Creek pack did so much damage to, he acquired the lease up the Williams Fork that was still to this day, I don't know how he got it. But he got an amazing hunting lease up there. And our hunting was really better late season. And the lease that he got is always good. And so it was one of those deals. He didn't know if he could book it. And I said, I have more people asking me to hunt than what I can book. And if you get this, like, let's kind of work together and merge these two operations because I can get you archery hunters and then you can get me late season cow hunters. And so it just kind of worked out from there. In about 2011, he started seeing outfitting. And ever since then, we just kind of been working together on it.
You guys got into the public side of things starting a couple of years ago, I guess, with dumping wolves in your geographical area on the voter initiative of Proposition 114 that happened in 2020. Tell us a little bit of a background of what were you guys thinking from 2020 until the first time when wolves actually came in? I mean, there was a several year process that went through there, and I've sat on the stakeholder advisory group, and I just earlier had John Howard in as well doing a podcast with Dean Riggs. But from 2020, November 2020 to the first time you guys knew that you had wolves, what were you thinking? What were you preparing for?
I'd say we actually really started this probably in 2017 or 18. We were actually working, our board worked with the USDA, a guy at the USDA, and he goes, hey, this is coming. These wolves are coming, whether they get put in here on a ballot or whether they come naturally. He goes, they're coming here. And so I don't know if Doug remembers that, but we sat down with the USDA guy, kind of started working through this process. And I think at the time what they were trying to do was keep a trapper that was out of the Meeker area, trying to keep him paid and then kind of instill in the Colorado. And at that time, us as a board was like, no, we don't need this, And so we kind of look back now, we go, shoot, we should have done this. We should have pursued this at that time. But then between 2020 and the day they got released, I mean, I know me personally, when that map came out originally of the two ovals saying here's the location, I'm like, oh man, Kremlin's going to be pretty safe. To me, that's what I felt. And not knowing anything. I mean, none of us knew anything. Nobody knew until that day it happened where they were going. I mean, there was nothing out there.
You had no knowledge.
No knowledge of it. No, not even a inkling of where this was going to happen.
Well, they never discussed the wolf plan with us. They never discussed.
They maybe had one meeting.
They never discussed anything that, to my knowledge. I mean, it was all after the fact that we were learning what, and to tell you how unprepared all of this was. I'm pretty confident that I had my first wolf depredation in January of 2024, just a few weeks after they released them. I called CPW because I had never seen anything like this in my life. There was blood. You could see where the cow fought something in the willows. She went through a fence into another pasture. That's why I didn't find her for a day, because I'm in the middle of winter. I'm not looking for cows in other pastures that, they come to the feed. And the only reason I saw her was some birds. So I went over there, and this cow literally just put her nose in the creek. And there was no sign of a fight in the creek, nothing. She had her rear hip was eaten off of her, which that's not typical of coyotes. They come in through other areas. Cougars, they're surgeons. You can tell when a mountain lion kills something. Obviously not a bear in January. I'd never seen anything like this. Called CPW. They came out. I winched her up the hill with my pickup, and he was completely untrained on how to do an necropsy. So he looked at his phone, and at the time they had access to the caller data on their phones, and he said, there hasn't been a wolf pinged within 2 miles of here. And he said, so it's not a wolf kill. Never skinned it, never went through any kind of protocol, nothing. And it's not his fault. He didn't know. So they not only were we in the dark,
They were in the dark.
The boots on the ground CPW were in the dark. None of them had been trained. And looking back at the pictures of it, it's like, oh my God, that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the unpreparedness was not just on our side; it was everywhere,
Straight across the board.
Yep.
At every level. When's the first communication that you guys recall that you had that was attempting to try to reach out and initiate some sort of dialogue or a conduit?
I know with me that I had talked to, it must have been our area wildlife manager, because he must have called and said kind of then when that got out there where where everything had happened, then he kind of reached out. And so I think for a couple of days, I kind of had they were telling us kind of like, oh, it moved over to here. Oh, it moved over to here. But then I think Doug, when we started having the first confirmed kill, then it kind of went away.
Yeah.
I mean, to a point, they were telling us almost everything, and not, it was a general, but then once we started having a kill, then it was like, boom, gone.
Really?
Really?
It just stopped.
Not completely stopped, but it got pretty quiet.
The last phone call I got about a wolf in my area literally was the morning that we found the first one that they confirmed. I got a call at about 6:45, and one of my guys was actually driving through the cows. He'd found the dead calf before I got the phone call that the wolves were in my cows. So, and the only reason that ended up being what it was, so I got a call saying that there were wolves down, it pinged right in the middle of our cows. And then we luckily had a little bit of snow that night. And so when you went down there, with what you could see with the tracks, it was very obvious. But had those tracks not been there, I don't think I would have known that was a wolf kill. There was no blood. Nothing was tore open. It literally was just a dead calf with a small little bite mark right under his tail. That was it.
And that's what we always talk about, is everybody asks us, well, how do you know it's a wolf kill? And I always go back to, well, we all think you watch the Yellowstones and you see the blood and guts everywhere and the bomb goes off. It's not that.
That's not the case.
I mean, our one friend, that one group was dropped off December 19th, and by Christmas they were having the wolf in their cattle. And so like there's a lot of suspicious between, even like Doug said, his one that he thought he had, there's a lot of that too. And so like we put a presser out to our members and people and saying, look, you need to look into this and this. Once we figured out what a wolf kill actually was, said, because you might just look at it and go, oh, it just died of
Whatever.
pneumonia or something, but it wasn't. You had to go in depth with it.
Yeah, I had 2 days before the one that the calf that they confirmed, I had a calf laying out there that it was identical to the calf that we found, and I just didn't know what I was looking at. Nobody's in our area has ever seen a wolf kill before.
No. So in our lifetime.
No, and so I'm very confident that I had at least two before I even knew what was going on.
So back up for put Gittleson into this equation.
Yeah.
Was that before or during and after?
Before.
That was before.
Before, in, during, and after.
Yeah.
Well, because the Walden pack,
Right.
actually, I kind of laugh about this, because September and October before they released the wolves, the black Walden male ended up down in our area. Ran between my place and Doug's and all over for about 2-3 weeks.
Literally where that calf
Everything was.
killed.
That's that one there.
Yep.
That's that one. That one's on. Yeah. That's on this document that was submitted to CPW in July of 2019.
Yeah, that wolf had spent.
I think that's his son, isn't it?
No, the dad's gray. Though he's a black.
The one I have video of running through is black. Before they reintroduced.
Yeah, that's at number 1084F is what they called him.
Well, I think he's 2101 now. Or no, 2103.
2103.
Yeah,
2103.
Can't remember.
It's pretty sad when you start identifying wolf numbers, because you're so intimately involved.
Well, the Copper Creek Pack, we could tell you everything about them.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew not new, but
But the Gittleson stuff, that was the natural cycle of attrition. Those were coming in on their own.
Yep.
And before 2020, Proposition 114, before wolves were actually brought in through the introduction process, we were already having wolves come in. You had wolves in your area
100%.
prior to 2020.
2015, somebody shot one.
in my BLM permit.
That was
a coyote.
Kremling, the coyote hunter.
Yep. It was in our, so it's not uncommon for us to see them. You go over to the Gore Range between Rabbit Ears and Vale. That's a natural corridor for them to run through there. They've been
one was on I-70.
one of our producers up there for 25 years ago saw a wolf up there running through here, and maybe a collar or something, and they got tracked back to Montana. So I mean, it was kind of a natural corridor, that area was. And I know we kick ourselves for not jumping up and helping North Park and Don more. It kind of like what we're seeing with Pitkin. These guys didn't realize what we had went through, but I wish we would have jumped 2 years earlier.
I feel bad about not doing more for Don and what he was going through.
Everybody just took it for granted. That was a worst case scenario for one individual, and that's where it was going to stay. And it's I think a lot of people were like that. That you had your head in the sand for a while because it's like it's on somebody else's watch. It's not my area.
Well, still a lot of people are that way.
Yeah. And it's getting worse. I mean, for people to think, well, it's still there. I mean, I live down in Fremont County. Fremont, Custer, Park, well, we've got a wolf down there. Turn around at one single bitch that ended up running, I think she's covered 3,000 miles or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the one that you had. Was it Conway that had 18?
Mm-hmm.
That was the large compensation that was recently paid out, correct? Or at least
not all of it, but yes.
Yeah. How far is he from you?
We share a fence line.
You share a fence line. So would there be any reason for the general public to believe that he was doing something wrong or different from what you were doing, or he just was the lucky guy that drew the short end of the stick?
So this is a really important topic because I think all of us producers, when we realized that wolves were coming, expected to have, one or two or something get killed. But when they set up shop, when they den and they rendezvous, and it's important that people understand when the Copper Creek Pack set up, this is less than 3/4 of a mile from a subdivision. And this is literally on the fence line with the private property that our neighbors lease. And there's 1,400 head of cows that are calving right there. And so
Endless food source.
it's literally the buffet. They set up camp at the buffet line. And what was happening with us is CPW recognized that it was a bad situation. And so they sent people up. We had, 5 or 6 CPW guys up there. We eventually got a range rider. But what was happening is these wolves are smart. And at the top where they put their den site, there's this group of ridges that all come down from there. And if you get on any one of those ridges, you can end up 5 miles to the east or 5 miles to the west. And so what was happening is every night we were up there literally chasing these wolves every night, all night, trying to get them to not come down into the cows. They just pick a different ridge line. So no matter what you did, you'd have one kill in the west pasture one day, and then the next night they were hunting the east pasture because you were guarding the west pasture. There was just it was at the last commission meeting, one of the guys that's going through it in Pitkin County said it perfectly. It's all encompassing. Like when they set up shop, it is 24 hours a day. I slept in my car in the middle of my cows because there was nothing else I could do. And this takes a toll on family and wife relationships. And I mean, I had to go on blood pressure medicine because I was sleeping 4 hours a day trying to run a ranch, and now I'm chasing wolves all night. It was just insane.
Well, Conway was doing the same thing.
Conway was doing the same thing. My dad had health challenges. Conway's dad had health problems. I mean, this for the people that when these wolves set up shop, those people, I don't think we can describe how bad it is. And literally, you have the government sitting there watching your every move.
Because the voters voted on it for you guys to be able to have to deal with it, and the voters never have to turn around and do anything. It's left up to the politicians, left up to the gubernatorial administration, which then directs Colorado Parks and Wildlife at whatever level they deem necessary. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that so we have in our studio right now, we have Becca that is from Canada. So I'm going to give her a hard time. But she was part of a previous conversation that we were talking about wildlife management and stuff. And I think all of this is somewhat new to her, but she is the quintessential individual that maybe is uneducated to some of these subject matters. You got a question you want to ask these guys?
Yeah, well, I have no idea what goes into running a ranch at all. So when your cows are getting killed, how does that affect your operation, and how do you keep going and handle it? What are you supposed to do?
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, thank you for that question, because this is another really important part of talking about what the voters passed for compensation, right? Is everybody says, oh, it's no big deal, you'll get compensated. Well, what they don't understand is a lot of us sell our cattle early on a video. So we forward contract these cattle, and we have to hit certain weights. We have to hit certain numbers. We have to, in June, basically know what our cattle are going to be doing the end of October and how many we're going to have. And if you miss that contract, that is not a cheap thing to miss. And I missed my contract last year on my calf weights. And so I took a huge hit that I can never be compensated for, because my steer calves average 43 pounds light. And so I missed my contract weight.
Which at a couple, $3 to $4 or $5 a pound or whatever it is, like it is now.
Well, they're almost $2,000 a head, depending on your weight.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's why, when Doug talks about weight, because that's how we get paid, is off our weight. And so most of our operations are historical. We know what our calves are going to do in the fall. We know dry years are going to, they might be a little better because the feed's hard. It's going to stay in their system. When the feed's wet, it kind of wash it. It's called washy. They don't really process it real well.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah. So we know genetically, or we know historically where our cattle should be. Like we said, our families have been selling cattle for generations, and we know what their weights are. We know where they're at. Obviously some things have changed over that, but when you don't have those numbers, like you're saying, we try to be, there's a general number that you go through, 2 to 3% that, okay, we might have this total number and we're going to take 2 to 3% on top of that. So if you start missing more, now you're, like Doug says, you're either going to miss your numbers, you're going to miss your weight. It's going to all catch up somewhere.
So in my contract that I put together every year, we do basically a 25-pound slide. So I can miss, say, theoretically, I want my calf weights to be 550. If I'm at 575, I'm okay. And if I'm at 525, I'm okay. But when you're 43 pounds off on what you were planning on being, that's where you're breaching contracts.
Yeah, and let me read something here that's just, it says in Colorado, ranchers can file claims with Colorado Parks and Wildlife for livestock losses due to confirmed wolf depredation. The state reimburses for the fair market value of livestock up to $15,000 per animal, which I'll let you guys address, and can also cover veterinarian costs for injured livestock. Additionally, ranchers can receive compensation for indirect losses, such as decreased weaning weights and conception rates. So that's some of the thing that you're talking about. But address the $15,000 deal, because that's been an anomaly.
Well, you hear that from the pro-wolf side.
Yes.
We have the highest compensation rate in the America, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's up too. That's not the actual value. When you read earlier, it's the fair market value. So fair market value right now for a calf is $2,000, $2,500. Depends, hit a yearling, it's going to be $3,000, $4,000. I don't think you're going to see a $15,000 calf unless it's some prize bull or something that.
I was going to say bulls, horses. If they get somebody's good ranch horse, to replace a ranch horse right now is $40,000.
Yeah.
And another big one that people seem to get really upset about is working dogs. A working dog is worth 3 to 4 employees in the field.
Worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, so we have to have good working dogs. You go to some of these auctions, some of these dogs are selling for $50,000-$60,000. I mean, it's not a
They're a tool.
They're
a tool. People
exactly.
look at them as a pet that you get from the Humane Society, or they look at them as the horse that you turn around and go to the livestock auction, and that just happens to be a broke old toothless kid's horse. That there's a different component to this. Did he answer your question good enough there?
Well, and I wanted to add on to her.
Yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Depending on the size of an operation, a smaller operation, if they start losing cattle, that might devastate an operation. Like my personal herd is about 15, 18 head. If I lose 3 or 4, guess what? I might go out of business because I got to have that number. A bigger operation can handle it a little bit to a point, but a smaller operation, if they start getting if they would have really went after Doug stuff, they might not be in business with the cattle anymore because it could have been that bad.
And there's no way to replace it with the crises that there are.
And a lot of those genetics probably go a long ways back. I kind of joke around and say my genetics probably go back to my great grandpa, and so to try to replace that, you can't do it. It's too hard.
That's another important thing about where we're at with altitude is there's a disease called brisket disease, and it's not infectious. It's not like that. But what happens is it's the same thing as people that go from sea level to altitude and you get altitude sickness. Cattle are the same way.
Their heart can't pump.
So the cattle that we have to replace in our herds, we usually source from our own herd because they are they're acclimated to where they are. So when people start saying, well, but you can go to Kansas and buy a cow for $2,500, and I'm going, if I brought a cow from Kansas up where I live, she's going to die. So, and that's one of the reasons why our cattle are so sought after, because our cattle can literally go anywhere in the country. That's not the same for producers at lower elevations and things like that, because our cattle do better when they go to lower elevation.
Well, and we have to pap test, same thing. You go in and pap test your bulls to see how their heart works, because that's what brisket is because their heart has to work faster. So then all of a sudden they can't do it and they're filled full of fluids and then boop, dead.
So what Tim's talking about pap testing is PAP stands for pulmonary arterial pressure. And we literally take a gauge, just like you fill in your tire up, and you stick a needle in their pulmonary artery, and you have the pressure, and anything over 45, get them to lower elevation.
There's a doctor at a CSU that he invented the program, and if I've only seen it one time in my life, and it is the wildest thing to watch. Gets them cattle in a chute, and he goes through there, and he goes clear to their heart, and he can go, oh, there's the one. It is the wildest thing to see, but yeah, Dr. Holtz is his name. He is very
discussing about science-based whatever the heck it is, and it's things that people don't consider any of the stuff that you guys are talking about because, and we'll get into this as we continue to talk, but it's hard for you guys to talk about any of this on a minute and a half or a 2-minute opportunity at a commission meeting to turn around and try to voice your concern or recount or rebut something. It's these type of conversations, and that's why I wanted to open it up to you guys. Not so much that, we're not Joe Rogan by any means, and we're not Bobby Marshall, but we're getting a good following enough to where if you have people talking about it over and over and over regularly, maybe it'll start to resonate with people to some degree, because it's not going to end in the Middle Park area. It's not going to end in the North Park area. It's not going to end in Pitkin or the Bruneau Treaty area down in Gunnison. It's not going to end. It's just that people have to figure out a way to adapt to it. And I think getting people like Becca and other individuals that are not in these conversations to get to understand the complexities and the severities of these decisions that are made through ballot box biology to make decisions on behalf of people that have to live with all this stuff that have no say in the matter.
Well, I wanted to say thank you for having us on today, because what our goal with this is, we don't want to come across as like we're complaining. What we want to do is educate people. We want people to understand what's happening. We want people to know the truth and why this is such a struggle for the people that do get impacted by it.
Well, and you kind of said it too, though. Like the people that actually voted for this that never understood or will never understand the impacts of this. And there's a lot of people I talk to like, well, wow, I didn't know the taxpayer was paying for that. Or, I mean, there's a lot of buyer remorse in this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
I think people are getting to the point where they understand that maybe them checking a box on wildlife management issues was not in the best interest of all the people that have to deal with it, or the wildlife and the state as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to realize that maybe they've created a conundrum just by checking that box.
Mm-hmm.
You got anything else you want to ask them?
No, I'm kind of blown away. I didn't even consider the fact that the wolf vote would have any impact on cattle or farm at all. I was just thinking elk and like the wildlife and how many numbers are there were with elk and the wolves and everything. I didn't even think about the cattle.
Well, I think that goes back to a point too, because you always hear the Yellowstone, look at Yellowstone. We're not Yellowstone.
There's no cattle in Yellowstone.
Well, and we're not. But there's 6 million people in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
Like that was the thing is like I brought in the Doug and I took the commissioner bag. We took CPW director. We took the chairman at the time of the Wildlife Commission, the regional director, our local AWM, and some other staff, and we showed them the Williams Fork Valley. Said, look, you guys need to come see this area. I told this to multiple people. I said, you need to come see this to understand this. Because like Doug said earlier, when you're 3/4 of a mile from a subdivision, you go over the hill, you have a major highway that is a major corridor from people going to Steamboat that is Highway 9, consistently busy. You have a big business that's up that valley that has 60, 70 people driving that county road. We just so happened to be there when they were all getting off work, and it was car after car after car. And we looked at the chairman. I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Wow, these things are habituated." Mm-hmm. I mean, we could go into that too about like where that male came from in Oregon.
Well, but I want to touch on this. So through this process, we've had a lot of people reach out to us, and like I said, we're just trying to be educational and also learn ourselves because this was all new to us. I never even knew what a rendezvous site was until we had a rendezvous site. And a wolf conflict expert out of Idaho has been in contact with us in
Washington.
Well, no, I'm talking about.
Oh, that's right. I know you're talking about,
yeah. And so we've had wolf conflict specialists from Washington State and from Idaho, but the one from Idaho came down to visit, and I took him for an afternoon drive, and I showed him the den site from one of the driveways in the subdivision. You could see where the den site was, and he's going, that's abnormal to have wolves that are comfortable enough to be this close to that kind of activity. Then I showed him we could have driven to the den site through the property. Then I showed him where the rendezvous site was, and the rendezvous site is less than a half mile from my buddy's house. That he had, 250 sheep up there that just got absolutely decimated, and there was absolutely no reason for these wolves to go anywhere outside of this 4-mile radius. Everything that they needed
was right there
for them. And so back to this wolf conflict specialist, he was blown away. He's like, I've never seen wolf activity like this. And then,
well, of course not. I mean, because they've been preaching and promoting exactly what wolves do, and then when they come down there and they do something contrary to that, nobody knows.
Mm-hmm. So one of the non-lethal techniques that they asked us to use is called fox lights, mm-hmm. which are these basically strobe lights that flash. And the idea is that these flashing lights will scare the wolves and deter them. Well, when I took that wolf conflict specialist up there and showed him where the fox lights were, he started laughing. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, well, the purpose of the fox lights, he goes, I use them all the time in the backcountry and in the wilderness in Idaho. And they're designed to scare wolves that have never seen a light. These wolves are running down a county road. So I mean, this whole thing, it just keeps like mind punching is like, well, this is a box that we have to check on paper that we're using these lights, even though they're completely ineffective.
Well, but it goes back to where that wolf came from. It all starts back when they first released that first group from Oregon. They were like, somebody else said to us, they had to have been around that before they came here. Well, how else would they have known?
I think it was October 17th, two of the wolves that they brought from Oregon. So they released them December 18th.
And 19th.
And I think it was October 17th of 2023, so just 55 days before they were actually in Colorado, that they had confirmed kills in Oregon.
In that pack that those 2 males came from.
Which was against the management plan.
Oh, here we go.
I mean,
Wipe it out.
Yeah. So I mean, as I explained there's hundreds and hundreds of pages here for 30 wolves that are now like 23 wolves or whatever. And because I sat on the stakeholder advisory group, and because the commission has now altered what they are not following within the plan itself, in which they've even admitted on a hot mic, well, we're not doing this. So what difference does it make if we do this? It's almost like it makes you wonder how valid this actually is after an 18-month process to be able to turn around and do it.
Well, I questioned the director one day.
Yep.
I mean, we sat in that meeting one day, and I said, he said to us, I want to create this ad hoc group. And I directly looked at him and I said, why wasn't this done a year ago? Before we had any of these wolves on the ground, why wasn't this done? Like, why didn't we do this?
Right.
Same thing. I'm like, what did we do for 2 years besides build that? Because everything that seems to be like, we're still trying to catch up with stuff.
So the really interesting thing about you bringing up not following the wolf plan, the Copper Creek Pack, before they were the Copper Creek Pack, so before they had known pups on the ground, if they would have followed the wolf management plan, so they did not have the definition of chronic depredation at the time, but there was 4 criteria that was set out in the management plan. Those wolves had hit all 4 of those criteria. Had they removed those wolves in April of last year,
April of 24,
we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be where we're at.
You probably wouldn't even be talking about wolves in the state of Colorado, because the wolves that were so bad last year are the same wolves that are down in Pitkin County doing the same thing again.
And explain that to the average person that doesn't fully understand or comprehend that particular pack. Go through from April of 24 until present day on that specific pack.
So April 2nd was the first kill. Then you had first confirm
Of 24.
24. Then you had, was it the 17th and 18th of April? You had the yearlings killed. Probably a week later you had another yearling killed?
It was just basically, we probably had about a week lull the start of April, and then from the middle of April till the 1st of June, it was just, we were finding something dead.
Something go missing, something.
All the time.
And that was in the process when they were denning.
Yep, they were denning, having pups were on the ground.
And then
Pups, and just for people for clarity, the pups would remain at the den site for 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it would be, and so if they are at that level, the pair is out killing,
hunting and bringing stuff back
to be able to start feeding and weaning the pups.
Yep. And then about middle of June, end of July, the pups come out of the den and they go to what's called a rendezvous site. And there might be a hole there, but the way it was described to me is it's just somewhere that's got really thick, dense cover. So aspen, a really thick aspen patch, places with willows, places where the pups can hide. And that's when the pups will start venturing out and learning to hunt with the parents. But for the most part, it's still similar to a den. The parents are mostly going out and killing stuff and bringing it back to the rendezvous site. But the rendezvous site is very important because it's just like the den, except now they're growing. There's more mouths to feed. So the rendezvous site is the one where I think the most killing happened and the fewest confirmed depredations occurred, because at that time the livestock are turned out on the mountain. We're lucky to find them. I mean, when we go ride our cattle, in the trees and on these big permits, we're lucky to see 15-20% of them in a day, let alone find the one dead one that they drug down into a creek bottom that there's no other cows around it. So why am I going to ride down there? So that's when it got to the point where we knew we were missing a lot of cattle, not just the ones that we were finding.
Right.
So July 17th, we had a confirmed sheep kill. And then the 28th is when the big one happened. They found, I actually remember talking to Conway on the phone that day about that. And he goes, they were missing a bunch. But they ended up having 8 confirmed. 8 confirmed that day.
Yeah, this is all in one night.
8 confirmed with 6 missing. They never found. Till Han sees them later on.
Yeah, but they hit him with the swather a month later out in the hayfield because the
hay was
too tall. Yep.
So now we got to that point. We're clearing to July and we're having all this now. Plus the calves that there was a bunch of cattle turned out in that time frame that were just above there that ended up, he was missing like
33.
Yeah, 33 calves.
33 calves.
Mothers were turned out that were bred and came back with 33 less calves than what
they turned out 169 pairs. And 169 cows came home, and they were missing 33 calves.
Yeah.
So then you had that. So then, we kept pressuring them. We sent letters through May, through June, saying we filed for that chronic depredation permit. Obviously Conway applied for it, but it got denied. And so then, I said, we can't do this because it's going to hurt the den. We can't remove the male or the female because of the den. This is the only blah, 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 den. And it just kind of.
That was, I think, the most frustrating part for us, because this was a learning experience for CPW as well as ourselves. And so as we were going through this, it was like, well, they'd ask us to do something. And if we did that, then if the problem continued, then they said that they would do something. So we go do everything that they asked of us. And then when we got there, another kill would happen. And then they'd move the goalpost and say, well, now you got to do this. Now you got to do this. And what they were doing is buying time until people saw the pups and said, oh my God, you can't go remove them now.
So let me interact real quick. Now I want to clarify. Do you guys have particular issue or animosity toward your local Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff?
Not at all.
No.
Not the local guys.
Do you have an issue with the upper level of Colorado Parks and Wildlife?
I would say above regional manager. That's my experience.
And from your interaction, do you believe that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has been the ultimate decision maker in this entire process to be able to deal with what you guys have dealt with? Or do you think that there could have been other influences besides CPW itself?
We know there was other influences outside of CPW. And if you look at who they brought in to lead CPW, that was a one mission goal with who they brought in to lead CPW. If you ask me, the wolves are just pawns in a political game that's being played right now.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger picture than just putting wolves in the landscape.
Yeah. And you guys are having to deal with it because, and the reason I wanted to emphasize, the lack of animosity towards staff. Staff rides for the brand. Staff takes direction from their superiors, and then it goes up the food chain. But that's not the normal cycle that we're seeing in this particular case, and that has not been the particular case over the last 6.5 years since Governor Polis has been in office.
Right.
Well, and like
we've had great relationships with CPW. I've never had a bad experience. I guess, we work with them through sage grouse counts. We work with them on getting collars from elk and deer. we've worked with CPW for my whole life. I had such a good relationship with CPW. I'd get invited to go fly in the helicopter with them to classify and count elk and deer herds in the wintertime. Like, we've had an unbelievable relationship with the local guys. They, they rely on us for information. We rely on them for information. And this whole wolf thing has absolutely blown this into something.
But there's been many times that and I'm not putting words in your mouth, from what I understood, that a lot of the boots on the ground guys didn't often know any more than what you guys did.
We were knowing more than a lot of them.
Yeah.
To a point, we were knowing more. I mean, I talked to our local guy, and he's like, I'd ask him a question, and he goes, man, I don't know. And whether he's saying that truthfully or not, like, he goes, you probably know more than I do.
I think our local guys not only were being left in the dark, but I also think that they were being fed information, because I don't think that those guys would lie to us, right? But I think that they were being fed information that wasn't 100% correct either. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's coming from the top down.
How long did it take you guys to get, and we'll go back to the timeline of the Copper Creek Pack, but how long did it take you to get any of this information distributed to you of when something was happening, not when it happened, not reporting on something before, but something that is happening now or what is likely to happen?
Well, I think us as the boots on the ground were the ones that were seeing it before they even knew it. I mean,
They never
Conway would tell you that like our DWM would call him and be like, hey, there was a wolf at the arena last night. He's like, oh yeah, I know. We knew that. We saw it. Like, so we were seeing this stuff before any of them guys were telling us or anything.
And we have a lot of game cameras all over.
You probably has more game cameras than CPW does right now because of everything that's going on.
Yeah, probably. I know I'm starting to put more and more out.
Mm-hmm.
I think CPW and us probably have game cameras taking pictures of game cameras.
So that's good.
It's not. I mean, it's not wrong.
Okay, so go back to the Copper Creek deal, because you were into July and going into August of 24.
Because we in August, and by then I think the rumbles had started that by September they finally had captured the whole pack.
Well, let me give the lead up to
Yeah, this is good.
my I was telling you guys earlier that one of my brothers is quasi attorney / on lots of different boards and stuff, very respected in the state, and so that they put together the ad hoc working group to come up with solutions for the Copper Creek Pack, and through that working group, my brother had worked with the director and people, and they finally got him convinced that, like, these wolves can't be here doing what they're doing anymore. Somebody's going to snap. Like, you're going to kill somebody, like one of these wolves, like something bad is going to happen. And so kind of behind closed doors, he made contact with some landowners and came up with a plan to trap them. And the landowners agreed to it, the producers agreed to it, and CPW said they'd get it done. And they said, if this is going to happen, though, nobody can know about it because we can't have protests going on from,
This is on private land.
Yep. Everything, 99% of this is all on private land, man. And so...
Which in theory goes against the wolf management plan
Yes.
about capturing for detainment or for relocation.
The real question is, I don't know if they could have... They said it had to be on private land, and we don't know if they could have got it permitted to trap wolves in Colorado on public land.
No.
So this was all on private. And once everybody agreed to it, one of the agreements also was nobody's going to talk about this until it's done. Like, weird. And so I feel bad because I didn't even tell Tim. Tim just kept beating the drum, like, we got it. And I'm like, Tim, good things are going on. Just be a little patient.
He's like, you traitor! What the hell's wrong with you?
I know where he's going with this. Just wait, it gets better.
We had a meeting with Gunnison Stock Growers Association, and like everybody at the time was losing their minds. And the whole time I'm sitting there like chewing on my fingernails, like, oh, there's some stuff going on that I just can't talk about just yet. And so they got the trappers in there. They set up all of the traps, but one of the things another person we didn't tell was our range rider.
So that's where I come in, because I was the contact for the range. Well, we all knew our range rider, and we kept in contact with our range rider. But I was the contact from CPW to our range rider, just because he's keeping it simple.
And so the range rider was unaware that this trapping effort was underway, and they did it with leg foothold traps on private property. And it was the middle of the night, and the trap crew was sitting down there, with their rolls and stuff, and they're watching the pack come off the hill the way that they always do, and they're going right down into the traps, and everybody's all excited. And here comes our range rider, 9-0 over the hill, shooting cracker shells.
Scared the wolf.
Yeah, just blew the wolves right out of their trap set.
And they called the producer and goes, what the heck? Nobody's supposed to know about this. And he goes, exactly. He goes, we didn't tell anybody. You didn't want us to tell anybody. We didn't tell anybody. But going back, I got a phone call saying
range rider was doing on their job.
But I got a call saying, hey, you need to move your range rider to this other area about this time frame. And I go, well, where at? And they told me an area, and I go, well, I'm not really worried about that area, because at that time, the producer in that area, because we were starting to get wolf activity in this corridor I was telling you about, and I knew it was a matter of time before we were going to have either a second range rider over there, or we were going to, obviously now the Copper Creek pack is gone, so we moved our range rider over there. But I said, no, I'm not moving our range rider, because that producer has a hired hand that is literally riding his cows every day like a range rider. I'm not moving our range rider. And the CPW guy goes, okay, never. That was all.
That was it.
They never, that was the closest I got to hearing about it until it was all done, until I heard from these guys. But they never told, our range rider hazed the wolf away from their trap. And they were pissed. But they were like, we looked at them and go, you said we can't tell anybody.
So, okay, then continue.
They trapped 4 pups and the male and the female of the Copper Creek pack.
How long after that first incident?
This whole thing lasted, I think, only 7 days.
I thought it was 10, but close.
Was there any other depredations in that time frame?
No.
Not confirmed.
No, not confirmed.
Not confirmed during the trapping.
Because I believe the pups were last, right?
Yes. The
pups. They caught the female first, and then the male.
Yep.
And then the pups were left. And I think once the adults left, then
And they got all but one, correct?
Well, so that's the really interesting thing, is they still think that it was a pup, but I mean, those trappers stayed there for a week after they got everything out, and they go up there and howl, and they do their normal stuff, and for 5 straight days, they're like, we got them all. They did their due diligence, and to get a picture of another wolf 2 weeks later or something, not even close to where, I shouldn't say not even close, a couple miles from where the rendezvous site was, to me, it's still questionable if that was a 5th pup or a different wolf. Mm-hmm. But they say it was a 5th pup.
Because going back to what we were talking about, game cameras, we kind of had a leg up on all this, because
we thought there was 4 pups all summer long.
That was all.
That was the most we ever got in a game.
So going back to when we were talking about them trapping them, CPW at the time had no idea how many pups there were. Where, not me, but these guys knew how many there were. And so...
Thought we did.
That's what and so they kind of they said, make a game plan for 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10 pups. Because we had known, and then all of a sudden that's when that video surfaced of them 3 pups planned. So then...
A louder hole.
Then they said, oh, we know there's 3. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of lost our leverage there, but we knew how many were on the ground.
Well,
we thought.
But so they trapped the whole pack, possibly -1, and they moved them to an undisclosed wolf detention center. And they were there from September
till January.
And they were, to my knowledge, they were getting fed those frozen blocks of food. I don't know if they're
kill. I don't know.
I don't know if they were feeding them frozen blocks or roadkill or whatever in the wolf center. And this leads to another really important topic. One of the agreements made when they were trapped with both the producer and the landowner was they said, we will let you come on this private property and do this, but these wolves will never be turned out on somebody else. And they're not going to ever be somebody else's problem ever again. And they were told these wolves will never be re-released. And they said, okay, you have permission to catch them.
Pull your paper out.
Yeah.
It's right in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But then you'll hear the director. They're not all depredators.
Yeah. Yeah.
and this is where it also gets interesting. So to finish that part of the story, they were there until January getting fed, and then the Copper Creek Pack was relocated. To this day, we don't know exactly where, but we do know now that they are in Pitkin County, and I believe they're now referring to them as the Capitol Creek Pack. So the Copper Creek Pack turned into the Capitol Creek Pack with their...
It's like a witness protection program.
Yes.
You know, change the name on them. And then there was significant depredation there.
Mm-hmm.
Starting, was it around Memorial Weekend or
There was earlier ones in March.
Was there?
There was one or two here and there, and then
They
Memorial
couldn't
Day.
confirm them.
Well, they confirmed one,
Okay.
and then
and he's missing some cattle.
there was a yearling miss. I think there was quite a few.
Yeah.
And then you went into Memorial Day weekend when the big 3-day event happened
Yeah.
with the one prior to that.
And then eventually CPW decided to go in and take the one
All
out,
the yearlings.
which was one of the original Copper Creek Pack.
Well, and this is another talking point, is if you look at basically like if you were to put a value on wolves in Colorado right now, they're trying to get to numbers, right? So what would you say is the most valuable wolf in the state of Colorado right now? A female with a mate and making pups. And so to me, they were making the argument the entire time that the Copper Creek Pack pups were not depredators. That's why they re-released them. Well, if they didn't know how to hunt, where'd they learn how to hunt if they were in a enclosure? And then for them to come out and say the one that we're going to shoot is a male, non-breeding yearling that was born in Colorado that taxpayers did not pay to bring here. Would you say that would probably be
Low man.
the lowest one on as far as
Likely.
hierarchy? And if you read the report about the lethal take of that wolf, 2405, it says that the other wolf that is the problem is 2401, who is another male yearling from the Copper Creek Pack. So basically, they're saying that the two wolves that are causing the most problems are the two most disposable, if you will, wolves in the state. Does that make sense?
That's why, but we argued with the original Copper Creek Pack that they needed to take the male and the female. But then they keep going back going, well, we can't take the male because then the den's going to, we can't take the male because then the den won't survive. Can't take the female because she's obviously feeding the mother. So we argued. So basically what you're going to say though is what's the odds of her being bred if she's bred every year, you're never going to do anything with her because you're going to say we can't fail the den because she's the main source. So that's why, if they would have gone from April before the den was there and done this, we wouldn't be talking about Pitkin County. We wouldn't be talking about this.
If they would have followed the wolf plan in April of 2024, you probably would never see wolves on the news other than...
Because not any other ones are really creating significant havoc.
No.
There's been a few, but nothing to you saw it happen in Jackson County. They threw resources at it, hazed it away, and look, we haven't had it's better.
Well, it ran to Wyoming and got shot.
Well, that's what they says. But I mean,
It was on the walkabout.
yeah. But no, I really think you wouldn't be to that point. We wouldn't be talking about this at all.
I mean, the only other wolf numbers that I know, you might know the ones in Routt County.
But they also have
The only other outside of 2309 and 2312 that they were the original Copper Creek Pack wolves. We know 2307 killed in Jackson County
Mhm.
and in one in Greene County.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been other wolves, but like when they set up camp, it's a totally different.
So some of the ones that they brought in, it was a December 24, January 25 from BC. That was January of 25
Yes.
from BC.
The BC drop.
I bet they're all 25 numbers.
Yeah.
2501,
So
2502.
If you want to know the numbers, they started collaring them in 2021, and that's where you get the North Park pack as 2101, 2301
Is the
or
son.
2101
is the dad, the North Park dad. 2301 is the black male on that.
male on
The
this
black
number.
male is 2301.
and then there's no 22 numbers because none were brought in and no new ones. So then anything in the 23s were the original 10 that they brought in from Oregon. Anything with the 24 on the front end is the pups from the Copper Creek pack. And then anything with a 25 on the front end is BC. It was brought in from BC.
Do you guys have any idea where the British Columbia ones went compared to the Copper Creek pack?
No, I never. There's a rumor, but no.
Not anything definitive.
Nothing.
Because going back to the original Oregon release, the only way we even knew about it, but I mean, the press releases never said anything. But we had a friend down there mountain lion hunting, and
Saw him do it.
We got the service and called everybody.
Oh,
So they're doing it right now. Get down here. And so, I mean, that was the only way we knew.
Yeah, that was in Pitkin County.
No, that was
That was
in Grand County.
That was yours in Grand County.
The original 2023
Okay.
or 2023. They were down there mountain lion hunting. He was running his trails every day. Got down there and he's seen all the vehicles, and he goes, "They're doing this right now, guys." And he got back in the service, called a few friends, and said, "Hey, they're releasing these wolves right now."
They didn't even call our county commissioners and let them know that they were doing it.
Well, they didn't let CBW commissioners know either,
No.
unless the ones that were explicitly invited to be able to turn around and go.
And if you know who was there,
Yes, you know how that invitation went.
oh yeah, came right from the governor's office.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is what's funny. You go talking about that is so that release they gave out numbers, and that's you still to date never seen numbers, colors, weights, and all that stuff.
And male, female.
Yeah, but we figured out, like we said, the Winnehaw pack. We figured out what wolves we had. We figured out where all that, and I truly believe the reason why you don't see that today is because we called their bluff on it.
Mm-hmm.
We straight up asked them that question of why did you bring those wolves from the Winnehaw pack? Because the 5-point pack was another one out of Oregon that kind of came in. And I want to say those wolves to begin with, when they came into Colorado, kind of had a little bit of issue, but nothing like the Winnehaw.
Right.
And so that's why you don't see that information today, even though they're going to tell you they've said it already. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Once they're on the ground, they're gone. They'll move on. They're moving. Blah 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 blah. Weights doesn't matter. I mean, they gave a generic weight to the media, and I don't know. Whatever, weights don't matter. But like packs might. I don't know what Canada has. Like they're not like Oregon, obviously, with the packs and stuff. But
I think it can give you an idea of their age too, though, with the weight, because a big heavy male is a lot different than an 80-pound, 120-pound male is a lot different than a 65, 75-pound male.
But I truly believe that's why you don't see that, because we figured it out. And odd numbers are males, even numbers are females. So like we can, when they say, 2303 or 2503 or.
And I think they were released in the order of the number that was associated with them. And that was one of the ways that we kind of figured out which wolf was where. Because they did another release site over on the Blue River, and that ended up being the male 2309. That became the male of
That was over close to Radium.
No, that was the other way.
Oh, that was the other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Green Mountain Reservoir.
Okay.
They released 2 there,
Okay.
and we had photo evidence and from somebody that was actually driving their car, and then game camera evidence that one of the females from the Radium release came over to the Williams Fork And that male that they released at Green Mountain just came over the hill, and that's where they paired up, was on my place.
If you want to support a company that supported the efforts to defeat Proposition 127, then you need to support Davis Tent. Davis Tent has provided quality canvas goods for outdoorsmen for the last 50-plus years. For more information, go to davistent.com. If you want to support another business that was instrumental in helping us defeat Proposition 127, check out Salida Gun Shop. Salida Gun Shop in Salida, Colorado provides quality products, expertise, and knowledge from individuals that actually do what they sell. Go to salidagunshop.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com. Did you guys hear them all the time? Did you ever hear them?
I'll come out and says, I've still never seen one.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Never have. They've been by my house, 400 yards from my house.
Have you heard them?
Nope.
Never have. So it's not like a great big announcement where everybody just comes into the neighborhood and everybody knows where they're at because they start talking back and forth.
But they've been right, like been a half mile from my house. Like, I mean, I had that one 400 yards from my house. The black male that's on there has been through some of the properties that we leased just by my house, ran between Doug and I. Like, I even on my high country, I've never seen one.
So the only time I've heard them howl, so I've seen them down in our cows. I've seen them running through. I've chased them off a lot of times. But the only time I ever heard them howl was that video of the pups playing in the water pool. That was on my neighbor's permit. And that's when his cows were up there, and we ran up there, and that was the night that you could hear him just going nuts up there.
How many people you talked to out of the Carbondale-Pitkin County area? I know that the last commission meeting in Glenwood Springs, there was a fair amount of people that showed up, but not in mass numbers. How many people you talked to up there to try to kind of relay your information or to try to give them some support?
Just really just the producers.
There's 3 producers that are being mostly affected down there, and all 3 of them were at that commission meeting. I actually reached out through Facebook to one of the families and just said, hey, you guys need to know who the players are, because we can give you a year's worth of information that we've learned in 20 minutes and show you who the players are, who you need to be talking to. And so they reached back out, and they said they would all come to the commission meeting, and we sat down and had lunch at the commission meeting, and it's just, it was like listening to a broken record of what we went through versus what they are going through right now. It was an identical story.
Well, but they didn't realize what we had went through either. I mean, those guys, we got done eating, and they were like, man, we didn't realize what you guys had actually went through. And like the same thing we're going through. So I think it really reassured them that, like, when these guys reached out to them and said, hey, this is what happened to us, like, expect this, or this is what you need to expect. I think that really helped them. And I mean, we're still talking to them 3 or 4 times a day for weeks or whatever. I mean, it's just because it's still happening down there.
Do you think that obviously something could have been done better through this whole process?
I think that pack should have never been released.
Yeah. And according to the plan, it should never have been captured or released anyway. Do you think, I mean, look, armchair quarterback, hindsight is 20/20 stuff, but if you had to do everything over again from December of 23 into current day, what you did then would have changed the outcome of what you've done now. What would you have done different for the first 2 or 3 or 4 months knowing what you know now?
I'm not remotely exaggerating. I would go back and I would pay somebody to be on a snowmobile every single day, making sure that they did not set up camp where they set up camp.
But I think that's the biggest thing.
And this is another ask that I have of CPW that I've brought up to them a million times. Is like, you guys have access to this caller data. You know where they are. Instead of coming in and saying, well, we've got pups now we got to have range riders and we have to have all this stuff. It's like, when you guys saw them basically slow down and start the process of possibly denning, and you're looking at the landscape where they are, you could say, wow, there's a lot of livestock right there. This is bad. CPW could be proactive in managing where they're seeing these possible den sites back in February and March, and pushing those wolves somewhere back in February and March where they're going to have there's going to be way less conflict. There's your team, the wolves up for success by putting them in places that aren't going to bother people.
And I think one of the conversations we had earlier with former Commissioner John Howard and Dean Riggs, talking about this specific subject, is if you could have had things planned out more appropriately, and it would have been better for the wolf, but it would have been a lot easier to exhibit a level of transparency and accountability. And there again, I don't want to put any blame back on the CPW staff that are soldiers, that are boots on the ground guys. And if they did something wrong, well, then I guess it'll come out. But I don't think that the 99% of them have. I think that it's been orders given from higher above, as I continually reiterate. But them learning through the process, and these things not being appropriately established in the process before they actually did what they did. I mean, just getting range riders on the ground this year, and look at the lack of flattery, and look at the lack of training, look at the lack of the program, there's so much that went into this that it had to be hurried for a reason, from more of a political agenda than it did from a science-based perspective.
100%.
Because this agency, I sat on this, and I could tell you what was discussed in that was not necessarily what came out of that. Parts of it were, but then they don't adhere to it. Parts of it weren't, but now they're modifying and they're adapting their process.
Well, it's to this point, we're here kind of telling our story, trying to educate people. One of the biggest things is this isn't fair to the local boots on the ground CPW guys.
No.
Like these guys are working double time. They're all salary guys. So now they're out there 3:00 in the morning chasing wolves with us.
Well, you mentioned it earlier in this conversation, Doug, that, I mean, the health issues, the family issues, the stress, and the lack of being able to carry on a normal day-to-day life and stuff. I mean, just think, those DWMs, a lot of those guys are in the same position you are, except for they don't have cattle to lose, but their expectations are, in my opinion, they're trying to be friendly to their friends in the neighborhood that they're taking care of, in their district that they're watching. But they have no more control over doing what needed to be done whether they had the right information or not. They're put in a predicament, just like the agricultural producers.
He's not getting the job that he was hired to do. Mm-hmm. Our DWM in our area last year
Never checked the license in September.
90%.
Because he's doing wolves.
Yeah, 90% of his job last year was wolves. And he's supposed to be in charge of fishing, hunting. He runs conservation easements. Like, this guy, they give him so much stuff to do. And this wolf thing, he couldn't get any of his other work done.
But it goes back to, this is why we filed a petition for a pause.
In September of last year.
Because you talked about it, the range riding program. We had the first state-funded range rider, to my knowledge. And we knew, I felt like that out of all the options, that was probably one of the better options, just because, kind of presence. But, that program needed to be fully funded, fully operation, not in the works, which obviously it was still in the works when we had the next release. There's only, 13 range riders right now?
And there was no range riders on the ground when they did the did the British Columbia release.
And that's what I'm saying.
It was on the ground.
That's why we asked for this pause, was to get these programs fully funded and fully operational. Because Carcass management's still another one that we talk about that's huge.
This is a big problem.
I had coyote issues this year, horrible coyote issues that I've never had before. My dad would tell you, we had, maybe once, maybe never a coyote would kill a calf. I had 4 killed by calves this year, or killed calves this year. I mean, and we all had birds having issues. The bears were starting to come in because our carcasses that we have died during calving season, we take away, put them off, take them away from the landscape where the cattle are, put them in an area, and
It draws other stuff too.
coyotes and the birds and the bears.
So let me, and I'm going to jump around here for the next,
That's fine.
35 minutes or so. Explain the difference of why there's a bird problem and what birds do, because the average person doesn't understand about the corvids. They don't understand about the damage that birds can do to a calf or a lambing operation.
Well, they'll like a baby calf, they'll peck their eyes out because they can't defend themselves. They'll go, lamb, like birds will.
They spread disease right now. Bird flu is a big concern. So, and let me hopefully word this a little better. So they're talking about diversionary feeding now down in Pitkin County, which is where they're going to go feed the wolves somewhere so that they stay away from the cattle, right? Well, that's what we've been doing for generations with a carcass pit. Is when I'm calving, 4 miles from where I'm calving, I have a carcass pit. And the scavengers, the coyotes, the birds, sometimes the bears, they're attracted to that carcass pit, and they generally leave our livestock alone. And part of this carcass management that we're being asked to do is to bury or remove our carcass pits. So we did that last year. And so when we removed that carcass pit, we were already diversionary feeding before this concept from CPW was brought out. Those carcass pits, once they're gone, those animals now are scavenging
On other stuff.
And so, this year was a major struggle to figure out what are we going to do without a carcass pit.
But at the same time, then you have roadkill, and then you have all the other stuff that's
lay on the road.
That's lay on the road that nobody's going to pick up, which the highway department, CPW, doesn't.
Yep.
I mean, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does your county even have a landfill?
No, we don't have a landfill anymore. They shut ours down probably 18, 20 years ago.
So they haul the trash out to
our trash goes to a transfer facility and comes to Denver.
And so you don't even have a place to put carcasses unless you're going to go out there and turn around and dig a hole. And if you were having diversionary feeding programs to turn around and address the birds and the coyotes and everything else, but then you're getting criticized because you have diversionary feeding for the wolf issue.
They called it baiting.
Yes. But now they're doing diversionary feeding.
And now they want to go bait the wolves or diversionary feed them.
And I also
this whole thing is just such a mind.
And I also
He's just sitting there going, "What the hell? Who are these guys?"
So I'm not even going to interject because I'll tell you exactly how I feel.
But I also argue because we go into the forest permits. In your 2, 3, 4 miles back in the forest permit, and you have a dead calf. What are you supposed to do with it? Mm-hmm. You can't go take a backhoe in there and dig a hole in the ground. You might not be able to get a foiler back into there. So what are you gonna do? Cut it up with a chainsaw and carry it out piece by piece? No, because most of the time we're gonna leave it. The birds are gonna clean it up. The bears are gonna clean it up, and by the time it's gonna be gone.
Mm-hmm. And that's another big point that needs to be discussed is, when we're actually having active depredations, one of the things that they kept asking us to do was to remove the carcass, right? Well, if a wolf comes and kills something one night and we remove the carcass and then he comes back down to eat on it again that night and there's nothing there, what's he going to go do?
Kill again.
He's going to go kill another one. And so this topic needs to be discussed because I'd rather leave a calf on the mountain and let the wolves eat on it for 4 or 5 days instead of coming down and killing another one night after night. So the carcass management is a very, very important subject that has not even remotely been touched throughout this.
Because going back to the pause, we asked for those 7 things. And the other one was communication, which we it's funny because that's kind of changed over the time. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, it was really good. I mean,
well, and the thing is though, is that we're since they removed the Copper Creek pack, we don't know what their transparency has been with the guys down in Pitkin. They could be doing the same thing to those guys that they did to us last year. So that's the part that we don't know.
Yeah,
is we haven't had the problem this year since they removed the copper.
We've had a couple wolves run through. They're in early March, we were having, before the denning season, the Walden group had kind of come back. We kind of bounced them back and forth between Jackson and here, or in Grand County. And so, yeah, that was, we don't know, because now you call your guy and say, okay, what's going on? And he's like, oh, there's nothing in the area. There's nothing even in the county. Which is good for us.
How much communication are you getting from CPW now? Any? Or is it
Most of that's what you have to call them. It's kind of going back to the old days of, like, you know, it's not like,
I'm just happy to make phone calls to my local DWM and not talk about wolves.
I try not to.
That's the
Try not to stalk wolves.
I got to drag a moose out of a reservoir with him the other day that died, and we didn't even talk about wolves. It was like, wow.
And then Doug left, and I helped him load it because Doug left.
So he pulled out, and then you turn around and got to turn around and haul off.
Yeah.
It's so where do you think, from your perspective and what you're dealing with, is there a lack of or is there the sign of relief, at the same time a lack of trust that's been that surfaced through this whole internal process?
I think so.
For me, definitely a lack of trust with the management.
With the management, emphasize with the management.
Yes,
So,
with the management, the people that the people that are making the decisions for the boots on the ground, we have lost a lot of trust. Nobody gets to see the caller data other than, we don't even know who gets to initially see it, because that information is then passed down after it's been filtered at the top end.
That we think that we know. We don't know. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. There's no watchdog to this whole thing. So,
because the DWMs and they all have access now, but at the time they didn't.
but I think that's watered down as well.
That's what I'm wondering too. It could be. It could be really watered down for those guys.
have you had commissioners reach out to you at all, ever?
I mean, we took the one commissioner on a tour of our area, but other than that, not. I mean, yeah, I've talked to a couple of them.
So they've been receptive.
The two of them have been very receptive. I think one has been reasonable to work with, and then I think the one there's a couple of other reasonable ones on the commission, but the majority of the commission, I think, is totally stacked against us.
Doesn't matter what happens to you guys.
No.
And I don't think those commissioners. Well, I think you're starting to see it with one of the commissioners now, and I don't know how much he's been affected, but like those guys can preach as much as they want about it, but until you're truly affected by it, like I don't think.
I've had there's 4 good commissioners that have reached out. Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't think those guys. None of those people have been affected by this. So we can preach about it till we're blue in the face. But until you talk to these guys and like actually go through it, like we said, the health issues, just they don't understand.
So September, you submitted the pause request, and then they actually addressed it when?
Finally in January. That's when they went to the vote. They brought it up in the November.
Was there a discussion about it at all in the MAR?
Yeah, I went down there and presented a 10-minute presentation.
Yeah,
or that turned into a 40-minute conversation.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks after the election, and they were also discussing the East Slope Mountain Land Management.
Yeah,
and so you guys were down there then.
Yep.
And matter of fact, I think that's when we first
talked.
Yeah. Did you see any sort of resolve or any sort of direction out of that, or was it a wasted 6-hour trip for you?
We've learned so much. I mean, I don't think any of these meetings have been a waste. I think that I figured out, because it can be overwhelming to sit there and listen to all of the different things that are going on, but you can pick the agenda items that you're like, I need to be in here to see this. But for the most part, like that Lamar meeting, we met a lot of really great people, and it kind of, it relationship building, right? Really what it was. I had no idea who Jennifer Burby was before this whole thing started, and she has been awesome to just a voice to talk, or somebody to talk to.
I mean, we sat down with Senator Rod Pelton, and had lunch with him.
Yep.
Was able to talk with him about stuff.
And yeah, it's more networking at those commission meetings and the people that you meet, and trying to just get the message out there. Like I said, we're doing this to be educational, so that people know what to expect, and see the mistakes that we made, so that they don't have to go down those roads.
For what you guys have had to see and endure over the course of the last 18 or 20 months, were you surprised at some of the testimony at the last commission meeting in Glenwood Springs by some people on the, I won't say opponent side, but the people that are displeased with the process? Were you surprised at how direct some of that comment was given to the commission?
Honestly, to me, it's laughable. I mean, we followed the law to the T, especially with the compensation stuff. And then for them to go out there and say that our birth weights are down, not from the wolves, but because of climate change. Like, I don't think climate change affected my birth weight in the last year.
Yeah.
Or
there wasn't a volcano in Kremlin that turned around and changed everything, and you didn't have a glacier activity.
No. And it's important how so people understand how that's calculated. Is we had to go back to 2021, 2022, and 2023, and get every weight of every calf. It was a process
That you sold.
not just that we sold, anything that we had. So like heifers that I was retaining, I was telling you how we hold on to our replacements. Those get weighed. So those weights, everything goes into this. It's a very tedious process. And in fact, to give another shout out to our local DWM, he probably spent over 4 full days with me in my shop going through these numbers. And I asked him specifically for transparency purposes, because I know how scrutinized all of that was going to be. And so I said, here's the thing, is you're doing this with me, so that there's no chance of anybody being able to say that we fudged any numbers. So he sat in there for 4 days with me, went through, so you take those 3 years and you average them. So you get an average steer weight, an average heifer weight, and an average conception rate. And then we compared that to year 2024 when we had the wolf. And my conception rate was down 6%. My steers were down 43 pounds, and my heifers were down 47 pounds. And all unexplainable things. The pastures weren't different. We didn't have fire. We did nothing different. And to put this in perspective, my replacement heifers that I was breeding, we run them separate from the normal cows because I want to put low birth weight bulls on those heifers because they've never had a calf before. And so we select for a bull that's going to have a lighter calf so she can have an easier birthing process her first time. My heifers were down in Grand Junction at the grow yard when all of the April and early May stuff was going on. So they never got chased around by any wolves. They came home late May, and we tucked them into a pasture closer to the houses, and this is when the wolves moved up mostly onto my neighbor. And so I don't believe that that group of cattle never saw wolves, to my knowledge. I had a 99% breed up in my heifers, and I had a 90% breed up in my cows.
It's kind of telltale. Yeah.
I mean, it explains itself right there.
You mentioned, to put some things in context, 43 pounds less than what? What would it have been? So,
my big steer load that we put together every year, the years leading up, they averaged 580, 578, and 576. And how we can get those numbers is I have a third-party cattle rep that comes in who's representing the buyer, not representing me. and he puts those loads together based on uniformity, right? So we're sorting the little ones off, we're sorting the real big ones off. And so this is the most apples to apples comparison that I can give you, is this load of cattle is sold every single year on the same date, and we're targeting that 575 range.
That historical
Historical range. So there's a big end that comes off of that and a little end that comes off of that, so that when these cattle get off the truck at whoever bottom's place, you can't tell the difference. They look all identical. That load that we normally hit 575 was 543 this year. And like I told you, we have that 25-pound slide. So I can't go below 550. And we took the biggest of the big. Like, we didn't sort any big ones off. Every one of them went on the truck, and they averaged 543. So it was...
And that's below the minimum threshold.
That's why I got dinged on my contract, was I was in breach of contract because my calves were normal.
What you and I do is a little less complicated, isn't it?
Well, I'm just looking at it all, and I don't think the average person understands the science that goes behind ranching and raising farm animals and produce. And, you know, you made the comment apples to apples as a comparison. Well, it's beef to beef, you know, like, I don't think people really realize how much goes into it, and the science behind it is, you compare that to the UFC, these fighters are trying to make weight so they can get in an octagon and fight. And if they don't, the fight's thrown out, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of a same sort of comparison, and you look at how much science goes into their diet and all that sort of stuff for the normal person. Well, I think a lot of people are complacent and just think that ranching just happens. You just put your cows out to pasture and they raise themselves, and then you go and buy your steak from the grocery store. But it's really not the case, right?
Well, but it goes back, what you're saying, Bobby. There's an urban-rural divide. I mean, like you just said it. Most people think their food comes from the grocery store.
Right.
They don't understand that. I mean, look at Colorado. We have the Palisade peaches. We have Olathe sweet corn. We have the potato farms in the San Luis Valley. You have the Rocky Ford watermelon, the cantaloupe down there. I mean, you have the corn out in eastern Colorado and the west. I mean, there's the sheep producers. There's the dairy farms in northern Colorado. I mean, it's all over. And I don't think, like, same thing. Most people don't understand where their food comes from. They think it comes from a store. And that's the one thing too. Somebody's asked me, well, how do you get that urban rural divide back? Because it's not just Colorado.
I think we need to have wolves run onto the golf course.
Or until it's at your doorstep, nobody's really going to pay attention to it. Like, you guys have paid attention to it for the last year.
Well, and it gets so much worse. I mean, if you look at what happened in Northern California this spring and what's going on down in New Mexico, these guys have been living with it for years. And I mean, I don't know if you got to see the pictures of, so counties in Northern California and in New Mexico declared a state of emergency because of wolves this year. And I don't know if you got to see the picture of the elk that was killed on that guy's front porch and blood splattered on his house and his door. I mean, this is really starting to get too close to home.
Well, and one of the biggest things too, and we talk about the lack of planning, but the intended lack of management on all of this in any way, shape, or form, and for elected officials, in my opinion, to be able to provide a certain amount of influence or authority or direction or guidance or whatever it is on individuals that should be basing all of their facts on the science side of it. I believe 100% the Colorado Parks and Wildlife has the best scientists in the Western United States when it comes to wildlife management. But I also believe that you could take that best available science and put it on a shelf because nobody's allowing you to utilize it, and nobody's allowing you to infuse it into this system where we have 6 million people in the state, 84 million visitors, and we continually talk about it over and over and over, and allow the wolves to do what they need to do to be able to survive, because there's nowhere they can go that they're not going to run into all of the crap that they're already running into. I made a comment during one of the previous podcasts that people look at the boundaries of the state of Colorado and they look at look at how much land is here. But that land mass decreases significantly during the wintertime because of the snow and the higher elevations that are uninhabitable for anything for the wolves to eat, let alone wolves to turn around and hang there. So where do they go? They go into the lower valleys where there's cattle, where's the deer and elk, everything turned around and congregated. A lot of that is private land. It's not so much public land. There's some public. But we've provided unrealistic expectations for all of this stuff to work unless you allowed the people, the boots on the ground people, to make the appropriate decisions based upon whatever circumstances they have to deal with and whatever adaptations they have to be able to deal with as things start to change. And the thing that I think that we often talk about is science-based wildlife management is adaptive. It's a model, and you try to adhere to the model, and if that doesn't work, you modify your model, you adapt it. There's not been a model on this entire process since 2020 because of the way that it was allowed to happen through the voter initiative and through the process of the stakeholder advisory group, now which we're adhering to the management plan in any way, shape, or form. Now, somebody might argue that, but I'd like to have them show us. And the other deal, too, is if you listen to what John Swartout said during the last commission meeting, he put the onus back onto this political administration and then directed the commission through a plea. Allow this agency to do what's necessary and make the decision to provide the cover fire because that's your job. Don't take pressure from somebody higher up, for whatever reason it might be, and allow this thing to cycle through the appropriate plan of action. Whether it follows this or whether it doesn't, let them make the right decision. And the thing that I want to emphasize, I always get on a tirade when I'm talking about this, is that you guys were sitting in the audience there, and if you saw the proponents of the wolf introduction sitting in front of you, and when anything that Commissioner Jacober said, or anything that Commissioner Robertson said, or anything that Commissioner Haskett said that was contrary to what they believed, they shook their head in disbelief and angst and anxiety and displeasure in a negative tone because they don't believe you guys. They think you guys are a bunch of knuckle-dragging, Neanderthal, cattle-killing sons of bitches. And I think it's a disservice for this agency to have to turn around and deal with this public emotional component that doesn't have anything to do with facts and data and science. And I think the commission is kowtowing to a lot of that because I believe deeply it's coming from a higher level. And I'm not talking about that high level. I'm talking about in the Colorado Capitol. And I think that legislators are attempting to try to do what is within their power and what they can do, as you saw with Senator Catlin coming in there and former Senator Will coming in there and other representative elected officials and county commissioners. You guys are the ones that have to deal with this stuff. And your counterparts around the country, around the state, are having to deal with this. If you had an opportunity, this is hypothesis, but if you had an opportunity to sit down, two-part question, with Director Davis by himself, what would you tell Director Davis?
I honestly, I don't know if anything that I would say to Director Davis would make any difference.
Because he doesn't care?
I think he cares about getting the wolf population where it needs to be. And then I think he's probably going to go back home to Washington.
You?
I think I would go ask him what is your goal? I mean, I really do. I do think like he was put in that position for a reason. I mean, and it's funny because like you said, I didn't pay attention to any of this before. Like just newly the last 18, 20 months, like you said. But like, it's very interesting to talk to people from Washington on what he did back there. And I really think there's a reason why he's there. And so I would ask, what's your goal? What do you, are you trying to get this to this population? Because I've sat on many calls with him. I sit on a once a month call with him, and I've asked lots of questions, and it's always the poor me thing with him. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're the director of CPW. Like John said, you need to stand up to that, and you're the one making decisions. You're a type 1 agency. You should be making that call. So that's why, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to keep what Colorado's been doing the same thing, or are you trying to completely change it? I guess is where I would go.
So next question, and I'm just trying to circle this back around to where we have some sort of finality and resolve in our conversation, but it's never going to be resolved at this point in time. If you had a chance to sit and talk to Executive Director Dan Gibbs by yourself, would you tell him the same thing, or would you think? I mean, and I'm going to work my way up higher than this. So
when this all started happening, I think I posted every single major policymaker in the state in our shop, other than the governor himself. Like 3 days after our first confirmed kill, Director Gibbs was passing through to go to
CBCB meeting.
I don't remember what meeting it was, but he stopped at the shop at like 6 o'clock at night. He talked to me and my brother, and it's one of those things where we've had a million conversations with these guys and nothing has ever happened, or just nothing ever happens.
he stopped on his own accord,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't feel like that was worth.
No, it was respectful, but at the same time, nothing came of it. And it's the same thing. I mean, we've had Senator Bennett, we've had Senator Hickenlooper, we've had Congressman Goose, we've had the director of the Department of Ag, we've had the head of DNR.
You guys are getting to be important people. I mean, you're rubbing shoulders with some of the top brass.
Well, we got to feel very fortunate too that they're willing to listen to us. I mean, we've had the Speaker of the House, the Colorado House. We've had her,
Julie McCluskey,
David Roberts. We've had almost every one of them people. They might not have seen the area, but they've been to Grand County at least and talked to us in person. So we've been able to at least try to get our message, and they're still coming back to us and asking.
And like to back to the point about what's going on with higher ups at CPW was when Speaker of the House McCluskey came. She asked about the wolves, and this was when they were in the den last year, and she said, well, our report that we got says that it's a 9-hour hike through the wilderness for CPW
To get to the den.
Do the driver to it?
Yeah, and if we literally laughed. There was 7 of us there, and we laughed. We said,
it's because the landowner wasn't giving CPW permission to go through this private property.
her job out hit the floor.
We could have driven you to the den.
And her job out hit the floor, and she was like, "You're kidding."
But that's just how they manipulate the conversation. Is they did have to walk in a long ways because the landowner, and not just one landowner, because along that entire subdivision there's got to be 6, 7, 8 different landowners that border that.
They denied all access.
They all denied CPW access to the den site as well.
Do you think? Do you think that the way that things are going, that this is going to get better in the next 18 months, or do you think you're going to have to deal with a quandary of circumstances over the next 18 to 20 months?
I think we're gonna have to deal with it. Quandary stuff.
I think let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the Copper Creek Pack, now the so-called Capitol Creek Pack. If they weren't around, we wouldn't be talking wolves, right? But it's a matter of time before we get to population where we start to get, instead of one of these hotspots,
You have multiples.
You have multiples of these hotspots. And, my question at the last commission meeting was, these wolves reuse these dens year after year and sometimes generationally. You get 5, 6 of these hotspots, and they're not going away. it's going to be the same thing next year and the same thing the year after that. And this is just going to keep draining the coffers. We're going to need more range riders. We're going to need more. This is a never-ending cycle that I don't know if they are thinking outside. I don't think they're thinking. They're thinking until they hit 250 wolves in the state. And I'm thinking, how in the hell are we going to manage that?
And there won't be any stopping them at that point in time under the current restrictions or the guidelines or prohibitions that we have in Colorado to be able to manage them if we could manage them. How about if you look at where we're at now and based upon what's attempting to try to be done on the landscape, what do you guys think about this proposed Initiative 13, where they want to create a ballot initiative to prohibit any further wolf introduction after December 31st of 2026?
You know, we kind of talked about that, not a little bit, but like, there's still 2 release dates between then. I mean, we're at that 30 mark. Well, we don't know how many pups are out there now. I mean, so it's going to be, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also think it's a little too late kind of thing to a point. I think because we've already got 30. I mean, we're not managing as it is, so it's not a horrible idea, but I just think it's, I don't know what a difference it would make quite. So
I think any way, to slow down the runaway freight train that's going on right now is a good is a good thing. I'm just wondering if the amount of resources that it takes to pass a ballot initiative couldn't be
Better spent. And that's one of the arguments that we had, and you guys were well aware of, with the letters that have been sent. And I've been getting questions about this and getting our ass hung through the ringer on the entire deal, because why aren't you doing this? And what do you mean you oppose this? And I saw your names on this. And I think that people need to understand that while wolves are a major talking point and a concern to the agriculture community and the conservation community, the state as a whole, just look at the budget side of it. Wolves are the least bit of interest to the overwhelming majority of the population, just the regular population. And I think from a conservation and an agricultural side of things, we have a plethora of things that'll be before us next year.
Oh, yeah.
You look at Initiative 98, if it actually makes it on the ballot, we've been told that we should plan somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 to $15 million to fight that.
Which one's 98?
That's the one to essentially defund and disband Colorado Parks and Wildlife and create its own commission.
I thought that was 82.
No, it changed to 90.
They changed to 90.
Yeah, so they went from 52 to 82, and now it's 98. But they haven't taken 82 off the rack so far. But if something like that was to get on the ballot, and then you look at Initiative 13 out there to turn around and do something, well, none of that's going to matter anyway, because this other commission, if it was, my point is that you got a gubernatorial election, you got 30 some odd seats in the House and the Senate that are coming up. You got many other issues that are, and that's not even saying the other stuff that could be thrown our direction from the people that are butthurt over losing Proposition 127 or the fur ban or the slaughterhouse ban. And they're already posturing themselves to be able to turn around and do other ballot initiatives on a state and a local level. It was difficult enough for us to raise the money that we did last year on 127. Then people start talking about $5 million to get this across the finish line, which would help if it actually passed. And then $12 million to fight this because of the wording and how it would be. We don't have the financial resources in the state of Colorado to turn around and fight one or two negative things and then try to do something that would maybe be positive. And my concern is that we will degrade and erode what we have available to us because people will be confused and they'll put a little bit of money on something. But the reason we won on 127 is because everybody was lockstep with the same message, the same funding, the same outcome. We had a culmination of efforts for November 5th of 2024 because of Election Day. And I think you guys would agree, just looking at the wolf side of it, the confusion in our rank and file community, I don't think that we're fully prepared enough to be able to side with what needs to be done on 2 or 3 ballot initiatives. Now, if we only end up with one, hey, great, more power to us. But I don't think that's going to be the case because they all know that there's going to be a hell of a lot of people come out on a governor election year and they want to turn around and capitalize on that. And if anything sounds good, like 82, like the Colorado Wildlife Biodiversity Protection Act, and if you read that and you look at it and go, well, yeah, hell, that sounds pretty good. Maybe we should go along with that. The average person in the next election is either going to have to be really, really, really educated and informed, or they're just going to go back to like what they did on the wolf deal and they're going to check the frickin' box. Yep. We educated the hell out of them in 127, and they did on 308 and 309 because of the wording and the message and the continuity of that. I don't know whether we can turn around and have a continued conduit for a good education campaign to thwart a Biodiversity Protection Act or this Wildlife Commission Council or whatever the hell it's going to end up. They're going to come back to the well at some point in time. I'm hoping that the ag community, and you guys and I are working together on multiple different things, that the ag community and the conservation community can come together holistically and organically to say, look, we might not all agree on something, but we better agree that we're not each other's enemy. The enemy's sitting over there, and they're ready to turn around and put every single one of us before a firing squad.
Yep.
And we need to concentrate on candidates just as much as we need to concentrate on issues. We need to turn around and make sure that those candidates are aware of our backgrounds and our beliefs and our lifestyles and our livelihoods. And if we don't do that, I don't think it's going to matter on any of this other stuff, because those candidates are going to come in and they're going to turn around and go with the most influential constituency that they have that wants to help fund their cause. And I don't think we're going to be near as bad as what we are, but I don't think we're going to be as good as what we need to be if we're going to turn around and try to rectify any of this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good. I would obviously vote for it. I would help tell people you should vote for it, but at the same time, I'm concerned about the resources, exactly like what you just said. There's bigger fish to fry, and I think we're already going to be over 50 wolves by 2026 anyways.
Likely well over.
Like,
you have the breeding season this year, they had the pups, then you put another,
let's say the 4.
yeah, and you put, let's say, 10 to 20 wolves on the ground for December or January this year. And maybe if this thing was to take effect, they'd want to do it before December 31st of 2026, plus whatever breeding population you have next year that has more pups.
We're going to be in the hundreds.
Yeah, I would say 70 to 100 wolves would be minimum.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it doesn't really matter whether Initiative 13 passed or failed or was ever even on the ballot.
Right.
Because it's going to happen. And if anybody thinks the Colorado Parks and Wildlife is going to attempt to try to bring in more wolves post Governor Polis, I think that they need to rethink their process, because I don't think that's going to be the case.
Well, and that you kind of said it, like I sat down or I think Doug was with me too. We sat at a meeting and the question was brought up to us is, well, what can we do? And at the time I said, the two things I know to stop this were legislation or ballot initiative. And this guy goes, nope. He goes, the governor can stop it right now. And I didn't know that. And obviously that conversation, we know who our governor is now. I mean, obviously that wasn't going to happen. But we know through the grapevine, through talks, there's talks out there from, candidates coming up that they want this cleaned up before this election. And so, I think hopefully some of that helps and we can maybe stop this regardless if there's a ballot. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know where we go with this, because like you said, there's just so many attacks on the ag world, the hunting world, the conservation world. It's unbelievable. And I was kind of wanting to maybe talk about that just a little bit, but when they brought in the wolves into Grand County, I know we had that conversation, me and Doug did, about well, why here? Because, the Colorado River runs right through Grand County, and most of the water for the Front Range comes out of the Colorado River. So some of us thought, well, did they go here because they want us off the landscape because now they can take more water over the hill? I mean, that was some of the conversation. We started looking at why, going back, it was that attack on ag again and us. I mean, we're still...
The irony of all ironies is I'm sure a lot of the Front Range voters saw that little documentary that was called How Wolves Save Rivers.
Yeah.
The irony is that where they dumped the wolves, 80% of the Colorado River is run through Trans Mountain diversions so that the Front Range has drinking water. So the same people voting for wolves to save the river, that they're taking 80% of the water out
Bring to the city.
to bring to the city is quite ironic.
So that's why some of us went to that theory of why here then? Because are they going to try to get more, like, obviously there's bigger groups that need the water, like that are trying to get the water. So that's where we went with that. Like our heads started going, okay, why?
And another interesting fact is, so game data unit E13, so they break, it's not just the hunting units, but they basically will combine some hunting units and say, this is a semi-cohesive elk herd. And so that's how they manage the populations of those areas. And E13 consists of unit 28, 37, and 371. And winter 2021, 2022, and winter 2022, 2023 were awful winters up where we were. Decimated the elk and the deer herds, absolutely wiped them out. And in 2024, the population was down, I think 70% from elk population was down 70% from 2018. And so we're sitting here going, they're trying to manage to bring our elk herd population up, and they're putting wolves on
To take the take the elk population down.
And is it the goal of the wolves to bring the elk population down when they're actively managing? So who's the loser there is the hunter, because they move tags down to minimum. They would only release 10 cow tags in that entire area. And that's the minimum threshold before they have like catastrophic things but they're dumping.
And they have to have 10 tags to be able to consider it to be an open unit.
Yep. And so
if it drops below that, then it's not considered part of the open unit.
So this goes back to the management of all of this. It makes absolutely no sense to me why they would dump wolves where they did. And really the only person that suffers is the sportsman, because the place that you could draw get a cow tag every single year, you're not going to get a cow tag in that unit for maybe ever again.
Mm-hmm. You want to get these guys on your show?
1,000%. But I want you to come with them. You see you do it. Yeah.
We just do a round table here, because these are the sort of things I think, we have an opportunity to continue to tell a story from the people that are experience the loss or having to deal with the headache and the heartache. I mean, guys like Ross Kaminsky or Mandy Connell or, any one of the other, the more that we can get people like you or people out of the Carbondale area, up the Gittlesons, to be able to turn around and I don't expect everybody to go on a road show, but I think it's going to be imperative to continually take every single available opportunity and put it out there, because the reason that we had such a consistent message on 127 is because my dumbass went on a road show and we went all over God's creation to turn around and be every single place that we could possibly get on. Now, that could be something to where it could be televised, or it could be Zoom, or it could be in person. But there's an opportunity over the course of the next 18 months to continue to plant things that are going to be in the news regardless. And so in the last several minutes of our interaction here, before we prepare to figure out what we're going to do down the road, give me a couple-minute dissertation. I'm going to ask you, and then I'll ask you, Tim. A couple-minute dissertation about, I'm going to ask you, what has this introduction done to you as a person and your family and your operation to be able to look at things from a positive perspective on continuing to do what your family has done for generations?
That's tough.
Well, yeah, this is an insanely hard question. It's going to make life-altering decisions to be made, because you know, there's no way to continue on as it used to be. You know, and being an ag, it's a tough job, you know, and the more of this kind of stuff that gets thrown on us. I mean, today I have a million things I'm supposed to be doing right now.
And you're sitting there talking to my dumb ass.
Well,
But we have to.
this is the thing, is if we don't, this is just going to continue to get worse, right? And so it's how, I mean, we appreciate people like you, Dan, that can dedicate. I mean, you've dedicated your life to educating people and you know, fighting a good fight. And it's one of those things in the ag community where it's like, how are we going to continue on if we don't have that person and that?
You're not going to be able to raise cows.
No, we don't have time.
No.
And so, you know, I think that the target with my family is going to be probably moving for the next couple of years, you know, like where do we all fit? How can we make this work? Do we need to hire somebody? To be honest with you, I can't really answer that question. I know that, I know at the time last year when the Wolves were doing their thing and we were just getting started in this process, not knowing who to talk to, not knowing the players, not knowing, you know, where to go. I don't think that my relationship, my wife is a saint for her to put up with my shenanigans. Cause I mean, I'm on the phone till midnight with people talking to them about this. And then I'm sleeping in my truck cause in the middle of the cows. And then I get home and I'm tired and I'm grouchy and I'm not being a good dad. Like last year tested every ounce of my body.
I mean, we joked around about 3 or 4 divorces. All that's getting the. I mean, joked around between us guys, but like, yeah, it was. I'll contest to that. I mean, my wife was about ready to. I mean, I'd come home. I was doing the media stuff for our guys, so I'd come home and I'd do 5 or 6 different interviews in a day.
Yeah.
And I mean, it got to the point where my wife's like, I can't. We're not doing this again. And I kept going. It's not going to be the same next year. I mean, it's not. We're not.
No, we moved on to a more.
It's back to normal in our area.
Yeah, but we've moved on to where it's like educational and we're just trying to.
Well, you know, it's only going to get worse.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it has to, because the population is going to increase if you don't have a structured management plan and order that's being adhered to, and you don't have individuals that are essentially in charge of the state willing to make adaptations to or suggest adaptations to the science side of it. It's all going to continue to get worse.
Well, and you've experienced this. I mean, last year when we had the first kill, I was hearing stories of like people coming and cutting your fence if they find out who you are.
FBI getting involved and
like all there was a whole bunch of mystery behind this, and I'm going, and my family was like, we are not putting ourselves out there. This, because who knows, wackos pulling into the driveway, right? You know how crazy some of these wolf people are.
I'm experienced.
And so, you know, when we first started doing this, it's like, how can we educate people but not necessarily outing ourselves? You know what I mean? And when it happened to, you know, Conway, he was kind of like, bring the cameras, 'cause people need to see what is happening. Because people don't, once they see it, maybe they'll believe it. And so this is where Tim took on a gigantic role for us last year was, you know, instead of it being an individual that was speaking about this, the Stock Growers Association stepped up and said, no, this is all of us. And so that's how we were able to really get the message of what was happening out as a group, and not necessarily pinpointing, hey, it was this, you know, it was this guy. And then with the whole wolf claim stuff it's like, I'm getting letters in the mail from people.
Oh, yeah. Or just packages into the house.
Well, I've never. I mean, I haven't. Well, I've got some weird Facebook messages, but a lot of. I mean, we just had our town festival the other day, and a guy catches. I'm standing in line to get food, and the guy goes, Tim, and I'm like, turn around, I said, will you remind me your name? And he goes, oh, you don't know me. He goes, I just want to thank you for everything you've done. I mean, I've had letters from my great aunt's friends sending me letters and saying thanks for being that voice or being a voice for ag. And so like, I truly never thought me being in this position with what we had went through, where I would have never guessed we would have been here today. Like, I never thought like the media presence. I mean, like Doug said, getting it out there was wild. And so just having that presence is insane. But like, I had a conversation with a guy one time, and he goes, do you think your kids can do this? He goes, do you think you can keep going with this with your kids? And I said, with what we're dealing with right now, there's no way. Because we didn't have a management plan. I said, if it gets to the point where my kids can protect our livestock, protect our animals the way like we probably should, then I think maybe my kids could do this. But like, I struggle because I am that fifth generation. My great 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 grandpa moved from Switzerland to Colorado in the early 1800s or late 1900s, and like, I don't want to give up that legacy. I want to keep doing it. I want like my kids' kids to do this. And so it's tough because
There's a lot of pressure to continue on. Because, I mean,
And it's not just between your circle. It's farther out than that, where everybody else who hasn't actually experienced loss at this point in time has had to see what everybody else is dealing with and have to question. I mean, I remember early on me talking to Don Gittleson, and Don's like, maybe I should do something different.
well, we all sat there. I mean, they're like, Doug can say it, Conway can say it. I mean, we those 2 a.m. being out there checking your calves, going, is it free? I mean, is this worth it? Like, and it's tough because I love that aspect of it. I think I knew from the time I was probably 7 years old, I wanted to go back and be on the family ranch and take over the family ranch someday. And so like, yeah, just the burden. I have not had a confirmed kill. I've had, like I said, I've had wolves in my cows. But like, I don't know. It's tough. It's definitely, I don't see anything positive out of it by any means. I mean, it's definitely like, it changed our management plan last year on our cows. Me and my dad, where I summer my cows is not far from Jackson County. And we usually fly tag our cows to keep the flies away. And me and my dad last year during calving season, we're like getting prepared for spring and summer. And I said, man, Dad, I don't think we should fly tag our cows. And I said, just because the fly tag usually allows our cows to spread out and they do better. And I was worried about having individual cows out somewhere and a wolf show up and boom. So I said, well, if we don't fly tag them, maybe they'll stay balled up and at least they'll stay together, or some of them will stay together. Well, we had issues or whatever, but like my dad's like, that summer, he goes, we're fly tagging next year. I don't care. He goes, the flies are so bad. He goes, we can't be worried. We just got to do it. And so like this year we fly tagged my cows. So like, it's tough because it's the stress. I mean, like I said, I haven't been super affected, but just the pure everything. It's like, man, you do sit there going, is it worth it? But also my great grandpa's probably been through this or been through the droughts, been like, I think we can get to there. And I really do think when we can manage them through hunting, manage them through protecting our animals to that point, I think that'll help.
If you had the chance, and I'll pop it to you first, and I'll go back to you. And I want you to think if you had a chance to give a 30-second or a 1-minute elevator speech to somebody that was considering doing ballot box biology again in the state of Colorado, what would you do? What would you say to them to try to convince them otherwise? Doesn't matter what it is, just ballot box biology.
Well, I think you'd have to relate it to something they're related to. Like if you were in the tech world and I wasn't, and I said, well, we're going to put something on the ballot for technology, you have to do this. I think you have to relate it to something they do. You have to leave that up to the expert. CPW is the expert on this. I mean, and that ballot initiative, the wolf initiative, went to the commission twice and got denied twice. There's a reason why they denied it twice. And so I think you have to try to put them in your shoes, or to get them to feel that, to understand that same concept of, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, and I think I've had a few people that have come out and then I've explained a few things. I mean, dead animals is that's part of our life. And it's, it doesn't happen often. I mean, it sucks when it does, but to get them to relate to that and say, look at this, show them pictures and stuff, just say, look, because of ballot box biology, this is what we're having to deal with. And I think trying to get people to get in those shoes would help.
Okay. Doug, you had a chance to talk to somebody and they were going to check the box on ballot box biology.
I think that it's insanely important, not just for ballot box biology, but how many things are on our ballot every year that have absolutely no effect on you. So, I think it's unintended consequences. I think that there's people that are going to vote the way that they're going to vote regardless. But I also think that there is a group of people out there. I mean, if you look at, when I was a kid, we always called Colorado a purple state. It was why we loved living here. It was very libertarian-esque, if you will, live and let live. It's funny because you come up to a small place like Kremlin and you have everything from cowboys to the biggest hippies that you've ever seen. And we've gotten along for a long time, and it's not, everything's not black and white. But where I'll relate this is, when weed was on the ballot, right, to legalize marijuana, it's I don't care if people want to smoke weed, right? What harm is this going to cause? Well, that opened the floodgates to Colorado's no longer purple. Mm-hmm. It's as blue a state in the nation, mm-hmm. right? And so I think that there's unintended consequences to every single vote. And maybe if something even looks or sounds like a good idea, is it necessary, and what are the unintended consequences? Because that's what people need to focus on.
Got any final thoughts?
Just want to thank you for having us down here today, and hopefully, what people heard, will, educate some people, and hopefully moving forward, these conversations get easier, not harder, because to, again, talk about 82 or 98, hopefully the people that are, whether they're remorse voters or what, are going to say we should definitely not be the ones deciding this kind of stuff. Let's leave it to the experts. So hopefully it makes a difference. I think the conflict that we had with wolves last year, and outreach mostly by Tim and a lot of people, I think that had a drastic effect on what happened with 127. I mean, specifically, if you look at Pitkin County and if you look at Summit County, they were 25% swings.
Denver County was a 10% swing.
Yeah. Arapahoe County. I mean, you just look at the Jefferson County. Look at the traction that was gained over those counties versus 114 in 2020.
Yep.
I think people are starting to wake up and pay attention, at least to the message that was out there.
Well, and I hope we can keep doing that with what's coming.
And
yeah, there's a lot.
That's the goal with these conversations, is hopefully they get to more people, and more people start to say, wow, you know what? Do we need to completely gut Parks and Wildlife, or do we need to fix I-70?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Closing thoughts?
No, I really appreciate you reaching out and inviting us down. It's really fun to sit down and talk and just able to explain stuff, because, like you said, we can't do it in a 3-minute clip.
Or minute and a half of the commission
No.
meeting did they keep cutting you off?
No, and that was a comment made to me by Senator Catlin as he goes, you guys can't say what you need to say in a minute and a half.
No.
I mean, part of the reasons why that's why I invited the commission to come to Grand County when they were in Grand County to come to the Williams Fork area, because a lot of people have never seen that area. And I wanted to get that out there that this isn't Yellowstone. This is a very populated area. And so, I really think we need to leave it up to the experts to do this. And I really think if you would have gone back, CPW, I truly do think that a lot of them, I mean, you've heard it from a lot of former staff, you heard it from a lot of previous, they like the wolf, but they also know what the wolf does. And there's a reason why we eradicated them to begin with. And so if we can go back, that'd be great, but we'll see. And I hope we educate a few people and people start understanding.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time of coming down, and the platform that we got is growing. It's not near as big as the infamous Bobby Marshall with the Mountainside podcast. But it'd be great to turn around and put Bobby and you guys in because of the reach and because of the consistent exposure and saturation, if nothing else. And, doing these things once and then having people go back and listen to them repetitively, over and over. But if you're out there often enough, just like what we were able to do on 127, you see where people go, holy crap, they're talking about him on Rogan. Holy crap, they're on Newberg. Holy crap, Cameron Haynes is doing this. Holy crap, Clay Newcomb or Howl for Wildlife. We have to turn around and build up an exposure and saturation campaign. You don't see a mattress commercial on Sunday mornings once. It's about 15 times, and it's every Sunday morning. And because people have to be reignited about, oh yeah, I need a mattress, and where are we going to get one? And I think that in today's environment, if people would start to pay attention at the commission level, at the legislative level, on a variety of different things, that maybe they could educate themselves, and maybe they could turn around and make a difference when it comes time to the next time to check a box or to voice their opinion or to elect somebody in office and figure out where we want to go as a state. And if we want to continually go down the road of what I would consider ill repute to some degree, that let the experts continue to do what they're doing. And if we're going to allow other people to do it, like might come about with Initiative 98 or Initiative 82, if we're going to go down that road, Colorado is not a place that the majority of Coloradans, not just agriculture producers and sportsmen, want to be. It's not a place that you want to be undermined and manipulated and agenda-driven by political hacks that have an agenda when they come into office, and then they want to transform whatever is within their reach, within their power. And I don't think the state of Colorado fully appreciates that. They don't fully understand it. But if we can continue to have these conversations, we can bring some light at the end of the tunnel. So look forward to working with you guys. If anybody is interested in following this along, make sure you follow up on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting. The next one is in Grand Junction on July 17th and 18th, and the one after that is in Pueblo, Colorado on the 21st and 22nd of August. And for more information, just keep following along on the wolf issue because it's not going away. And, look forward to working with you guys and appreciate you taking the time to come up.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.